Hercule Poirot and the Sealed Envelope. Dark, welcome to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm your host, Elias Thorne. Tonight we dive into a chilling tale of deception and deduction. Hercule Poirot and the Sealed Envelope. Dark. Settle in with a cup of tea, dim the lights, and let the story transport you to the shadowy world of 1920s England. This is a long one, over 90 minutes of intrigue, so relax and enjoy. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and bell for more classic mysteries. Tell me in the comments, where are you listening from tonight? London? A cozy estate? Or perhaps on a train like the Orient Express? Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Gathering Storm. The year was 1925, and England still wore the war like a half-healed scar. In the heart of Sussex, where the downs folded themselves into secret valleys, Blackthorn Manor crouched beneath a sky the color of tarnished pewter. Its chimneys exhaled thin ribbons of coal smoke that the wind snatched away before they could rise. Its windows, tall, narrow, and watchful, reflected nothing but the storm that had been gathering since dawn. Hercule Poirot arrived at 23 minutes past 4 in the afternoon, the precise moment the first fat raindrop struck the windscreen of the Daimler. The chauffeur, a taciturn fellow named Wilkins, wrestled the car up the gravel drive as though steering a ship through a squall. Poirot sat in the back, gloved hands folded over the head of his Malacca cane, eyes half closed yet seeing everything. The way the yew trees bent like mourners, the single light burning in an upper window. Though dusk was still hours away, the faint smell of wet earth and gunpowder that clung to the air even here, 7 years after the armistice. He had come at the urgent summons of Sir Reginald Hargrove, industrialist, speculator, and, if London gossip was to be believed, occasional dabbler in secrets that governments preferred buried. The telegram, delivered to Poirot's Whitehaven mansions flat by a boy whose boots left muddy prints on the carpet, had been characteristically abrupt. Poirot disliked melodrama, yet he disliked unsolved enigmas more. He had packed a small valise, a box of his favorite tisane, and the quiet certainty that wherever Sir Reginald Hargrove was concerned, order would soon give way to disorder. The Daimler lurched to a halt beneath the porte-cochere. A butler emerged, tall, gaunt, with a face like a marble tombstone, and a scar that began at his left ear and vanished into the starched collar of his morning coat. "Mr. Graves," he introduced himself, voice pitched low as though the house itself might be listening. "Sir Reginald is expecting you, Monsieur Poirot. This way." They passed beneath a stone arch carved with the blackthorn crest, a raven clutching a sealed scroll in its beak. Inside, the hall breathed centuries of chilled air. Gas jets hissed in their sconces, their light slid across oak paneling the color of dried blood and portraits whose eyes followed Poirot with the weary resignation of the long dead. Somewhere above, a clock struck the quarter hour, each chime lingering a fraction too long, as though reluctant to let the silence return. Graves relieved Poirot of his hat and cane. "The other guests have arrived," he murmured. "Dinner at 8. Sir Reginald asks that you join him in the library at 6:30 for sherry and clarification." Poirot inclined his head. "Clarification is always welcome, monsieur, though I suspect it will prove as elusive as the English weather." He was shown to the Peacock Suite, walls papered in midnight blue, a 4-poster bed that could have slept a regiment, and a fireplace already laid, though no fire yet kindled. From the window he surveyed the estate, formal gardens dissolving into wilderness, a lake the color of gunmetal, and beyond, the downs rising like the backs of sleeping beasts. A single light winked from the stable block, someone moving about with a lantern. Poirot filed the detail away the way a jeweler pockets a stray diamond. At 6:28 precisely he descended the grand staircase. The library door stood ajar. Within, flames danced in a hearth large enough to roast an ox. Sir Reginald Hargrove awaited him, a bull of a man in his 60th year, florid, mustached, dressed in a dinner jacket that strained at the seams. In one hand he held a crystal tumbler of whiskey, in the other a thick cream envelope secured with scarlet wax and the same raven crest. "Poirot, by God!" Hargrove's voice boomed like a 12-pound gun. "You're smaller than the photographs suggest. Sit, sit. Damn this weather." Poirot took the proffered chair, arranging the crease of his trousers with care. "You spoke, monsieur, of an envelope that will unmake us all. A touch theatrical, non?" Hargrove's laugh was a bark. "Theatrical? Wait till you hear what's inside, but not yet. The others must be present. Suffice to say it concerns indiscretions, wartime indiscretions, names, dates, cipher keys. Enough to hang half a dozen reputations and 1 or 2 necks." He tapped the envelope against his palm. "Tomorrow at dawn I open it in the study. Everyone named will be here to witness. After that, well, we shall see who still has a face to show in London." Poirot's eyes flicked to the seal. "And you fear someone may try to prevent the dawn?" Hargrove's bonhomie slipped a notch. "I fear many things, Poirot. Fear keeps a man alive. But yes, there have been incidents. A letter intercepted. A groom found unconscious in the stables with no memory of the blow, and last night," he drained his glass, "last night I thought I saw a figure at the study window. Inside the grounds, mind you, but when Graves investigated, nothing. Rain and shadows." Poirot stroked his mustache. "Shadows can be arranged, monsieur, as can accidents." Before Hargrove could reply, the door opened to admit the first of the weekend guests. Lady Evelyn Hargrove glided in on a cloud of Chanel and cigarette smoke. At 45, she retained the kind of beauty that turns heads and breaks hearts in the same motion, raven hair coiled beneath a bandeau of diamonds, skin pale as porcelain, eyes the green of deep water hiding sharp rocks. She wore black silk that shimmered like oil, and around her throat a rope of black pearls that seemed to drink the firelight. "Reginald, darling," she said, voice husky from Gauloises and late nights, "you promised no shop talk before dinner." Her gaze settled on Poirot. "And this must be the famous detective, how quaint." Poirot rose and bowed. "Madame, enchantment. Though I detect a note of skepticism, you do not believe in detectives?" "I believe in locks," she replied, accepting a martini from Graves. "And in husbands who cannot keep secrets. Present company accepted, of course." Hargrove's smile was thin. "Evelyn has her own reasons for disliking surprises, Poirot. Don't you, my dear?" She raised her glass in mock toast. "To surprises, then. May they be few." Next came Captain Victor Langford, limping in on a Malacca cane of his own, ebony with a silver wolf's head. 34, sun-browned from service in Mesopotamia, he wore his dinner jacket like a uniform he had never quite relinquished. A scar traced his hairline. His eyes were the pale blue of a winter sky over no man's land. "Uncle," he greeted Hargrove with a crisp nod that held neither warmth nor hostility. "Detective," he offered Poirot a gloved hand. "Heard you sorted out that business on the Orient Express. Nasty." Poirot's grip was firm. "Nasty is a mild word, Captain, but order was restored. Tell me, do you ride to hounds?" Victor's eyebrow arched. "When the leg permits. Why?" "Because the stables interest me," Poirot said smoothly. "And because a man who understands horses understands patience and timing." Victor's smile did not reach his eyes. "Timing is everything in war, monsieur. And in peace, I find." Miss Clara Beaumont entered next, a breath of Paris in the English gloom. 26, petite, with chestnut hair bobbed in the latest mode and eyes that held the liquid darkness of a Rembrandt portrait. She wore a gown of midnight velvet that left her shoulders bare. A single cameo brooch at her throat depicted Psyche releasing butterflies. She was, Poirot learned, governess to Sir Reginald's ward, young Timothy, currently away at school. "Monsieur Poirot," she said in accented English, offering a small gloved hand. "I have read of your cases in Le Figaro. You are more elegant than I imagined." Poirot kissed the air above her knuckles. "And you, mademoiselle, are more mysterious. A governess who reads detective stories. How deliciously incongruous." Clara's laugh was soft. "Children sleep, monsieur. Nights are long in the country." Dr. Elias, Thorne lumbered in behind her, a bear in evening dress. 61, corpulent, with a watch chain strained across his waistcoat and a face florid from port and richer living than most physicians allowed themselves. He carried a small black bag. Habit, he explained, though he was off duty. "Hargrove, old man," he boomed, clapping Sir Reginald on the shoulder with enough force to stagger a lesser host. "Still breathing, I see. Good, good. And this is the Belgian sleuth? Capital." Poirot inclined his head. "Doctor, your reputation precedes you. They say you keep half the House of Lords upright with little pills and large bills." Thorne chuckled, a sound like gravel in a bucket. "Only the ones worth saving, monsieur. Only the ones worth saving." Last came Mrs. Agatha Finch, the housekeeper, though she entered not as servant but as summoned guest, an oddity that set Poirot's mustache twitching. 53, angular, dressed in bombazine that rustled like dry leaves. She moved with the precision of a woman who had measured every corridor and counted every silver spoon for 30 years. Her eyes were the washed-out blue of winter seas. Her mouth a thin line that might once have smiled but had forgotten how. "Sir Reginald," she said, voice clipped as scissors, "the fish course is ready when you are." Hargrove waved a hand. "Later, Finch. Tonight you dine with us. Orders." Her lips tightened, but she inclined her head and took the remaining chair. Back straight, hands folded, the very picture of restrained fury. Poirot surveyed the circle. 6 souls plus himself, arranged around the fire like pieces on a chessboard. Outside, the storm broke in earnest, rain lashing the windows, wind howling in the chimneys, thunder marching closer with the measured tread of an executioner. Hargrove raised his glass. "To truth," he declared. "May it be kinder than we deserve." Glasses clinked. Poirot sipped his sherry, 1921, excellent, and noted the tiny tremor in Clara's wrist, the way Victor's gaze kept drifting to the sealed envelope now resting on the mantel. The bead of sweat on Dr. Thorne's brow despite the chill. The manner in which Lady Evelyn's black pearls seemed to pulse with each flash of lightning. Graves appeared to announce dinner. As the party rose, Poirot lingered, drawn to a portrait above the fireplace, a young officer in the uniform of the Sussex Yeomanry, circa 1914. The face was Victor's, but softer, unlined by war. Beneath a brass plate read, "Le nom d'honneur Victor Langford killed in action, Ypres, 1917. Poirot's eyes narrowed, yet here stood Captain Langford, very much alive, limping toward the dining room. A mystery within a mystery, and the evening had barely begun. Dinner was a study in tension served with turbot and Chateau d'Yquem. Conversation skated across safe topics, Ascot, the new talkies, the Prince of Wales' latest indiscretion, yet beneath every polite murmur ran the undercurrent of the envelope. Poirot ate sparingly, observing. At 11:30, coffee was served in the drawing room. The storm had settled into a steady, mournful drumming. Hargrove stood, envelope once more in hand. "Tomorrow," he announced, "dawn in the study. The envelope will be opened. Until then, I bid you good night." He bowed with mock gallantry and departed, the envelope tucked inside his breast pocket. Poirot watched him climb the stairs, heard the study door close, the key turn in the lock. A moment later, the click of the safe. The guests dispersed. Poirot lingered in the hall, noting which lights remained burning. At midnight, the grandfather clock in the hall struck 12 slow notes. Poirot, unable to sleep, donned dressing gown and slippers and descended to the library. The fire had burned low, embers pulsed like dying hearts. On the mantel, the brass plate beneath the portrait glinted, Letard, the owner of Victor Langford, killed in action. Poirot took a spill from the hearth, lit it, and held it close to the plaque. Beneath the engraving, faint scratches, recent, deliberate. He angled the light, initials VL 1925, a message, a warning. From the corridor came the soft creak of a floorboard. Poirot extinguished the spill and stepped into shadow. A figure passed the library door, slight, cloaked in darkness, moving toward the study. A gloved hand tested the handle. Locked. The figure hesitated, then melted back into the gloom. Poirot waited a full minute before following. The hallway was empty, but a scent lingered. Jasmine and Gauloises. Lady Evelyn? Or Clara's French perfume? He returned to his room, set his traveling clock for 5:30, and lay fully dressed upon the bed. Outside, the storm redoubled its fury, as though the very heavens conspired to drown the truth before it could be spoken. In the darkness, Poirot smiled without humor. Somewhere in Blackthorn Manor, a clock was ticking toward murder, and Hercule Poirot, with his little gray cells alert, intended to be there when it struck. Chapter 2. Shadows in the Night. The house slept, or pretended to. At 2:17 a.m., the storm reached its zenith. Rain like machine gun fire on the slate roof, wind screaming through the chimneys as though the souls of the trenches had come home to roost. Hercule Poirot lay motionless in the Peacock suite, eyes open, ears tuned to the manor's pulse. He had not undressed. His patent shoes gleamed faintly beside the bed. His Malacca cane rested against the nightstand like a sentinel. Sleep for Poirot was a luxury reserved for the innocent. A sound, not thunder, not wind, slipped beneath the door, a single stifled gasp cut off as sharply as a snapped thread. Poirot was upright in an instant, robe cinched, cane in hand. He opened the door a finger's breadth. The corridor stretched away in both directions, gas jets turned low, their flames trembling in the draft. Nothing moved, yet the air carried a new note. The metallic tang of blood, faint but unmistakable. He stepped out, slippers silent on the runner. The scent grew stronger toward the west wing, Sir Reginald's study. The door was closed, the key still in the lock on the inside, visible through the old-fashioned keyhole. Poirot knelt, eye to the aperture. The study was lit by a green-shaded desk lamp. Its cone of light fell across the master of the house. Sir Reginald Hargrove sat slumped forward, head resting on folded arms as though napping over paperwork. But the arms were wrong, too still, and the paperwork was the color of fresh liver. A dagger, oriental curved from the collection on the wall, protruded between the shoulder blades like a misplaced exclamation mark. Beside the body, the safe door yawned. The scarlet-sealed envelope lay torn open, its contents gone. No footprints marred the puddle forming beneath the desk. The single window was bolted from within, curtains undisturbed. The key glittered on the rug, inches from Sir Reginald's outstretched fingers. Poirot straightened, pulse steady, mind racing. A locked room, a vanished document, a corpse that had locked its own tomb. He tested the handle, solid, no tremor of life beyond. He was turning away to rouse the house when a second sound froze him. The soft scrape of a latch somewhere below. The green baize door to the servants' stairs. Footsteps, light, rapid, descending. Poirot moved like a shadow, cane muffling his tread. He reached the stairhead in time to see a flicker of candlelight vanish around the bend. He followed, but the storm swallowed pursuit. By the time he gained the kitchen corridor, the candle was extinguished and the baize door swung gently on its hinges. A single droplet of water, not rain, glistened on the flagstones. Wax. Someone had carried a candle down, then snuffed it. Back in the hall, the grandfather clock prepared to strike 3. Poirot waited until the final chime faded, then raised his voice, not loud but carrying, the way a sergeant major addresses a parade square. "Mesdames et messieurs, to the study, vite!" Lights bloomed along the upper landing. Doors opened. Faces appeared, pale moons in the gloom. Mrs. Finch arrived first, hair in steel curlers, dressing gown clutched like armor. Her scream, raw animal, shattered the last pretense of sleep. She had come to lay the breakfast fires and found instead a tableau of death. Lady Evelyn followed, black silk wrapper slipping from one shoulder, eyes wide but dry. "Reginald?" a whisper already knowing the answer. Captain Victor Langford limped into view, revolver in hand, service Webley well oiled. He took in the scene through the keyhole, swore softly and lowered the weapon. "Stand back, everyone. No one touches that door." Dr. Thorne lumbered behind, medical bag swinging. He knelt, peered, recoiled. "Dead 2 to 4 hours, single thrust, heart, instant." Clara Beaumont appeared last, candle trembling in her grip, the Sioux, flame-gilding tears on her cheeks. She crossed herself, whispered a prayer in French. Poirot assumed command with the quiet authority of a man who has seen worse on battlefields. "Captain, your revolver, guard the door. Doctor, you will examine the body once we are inside. Madame Finch, coffee for all, strong. Mademoiselle Clara, you will remain with Lady Evelyn. No one leaves the hall." Victor produced a jemmy from the umbrella stand, kept, he explained, for just such eventualities. The lock splintered with a single blow. The door swung inward on well-oiled hinges. The study smelled of cigars, blood, and the particular staleness of locked rooms. Rain hammered the window like impatient fists. Poirot's gaze catalogued. Lady Evelyn saw it at the same moment. Her hand flew to her throat. Her rope of pearls was now missing one. "Coincidence," she murmured, but her voice cracked. Dr. Thorne's examination was swift. Between midnight and 3, almost certainly after 1. Liver temperature. No defensive wounds. He was seated writing when struck. Poirot crouched, studied the key on the floor. It lay precisely where a dying man's convulsion might fling it, yet the angle was wrong for a fall. He lifted it with a silk handkerchief. Warm. Someone had held it recently. Victor sniffed the air. "Cordite? No, gun oil. My revolver." He checked the cylinder, 6 rounds undisturbed. Clara's candle guttered. She stared at the dagger. "That blade. It was on the wall yesterday. I dusted it myself." Mrs. Finch returned with a tray rattling with coffee cups. Her hands shook so violently that brown rivers ran across the saucers. "The kitchen window was unlatched," she said. "I latched it at 11. Someone came through." Poirot sipped the coffee, excellent scalding, and addressed the circle. "Observe, the victim locked himself in at midnight. The clock in the hall confirms. The window is bolted, the key inside, yet the envelope is taken, the safe forced, the master dead. We have the impossible crime." He turned to Victor. "Captain, you were a signals officer, codes, ciphers, your uncle's envelope." Victor's jaw tightened. He hinted at a list. Names of men who sold information to the Germans, said it would ruin families, mine included, perhaps. Lady Evelyn laughed, a brittle sound. Reginald collected enemies the way other men collect stamps, but murder? In his own study? Dr. Thorne closed his bag with a snap. Laudanum residue in the whiskey glass. He was drowsy, easy prey. Poirot's eyes narrowed, yet not drowsy enough to open the safe for his killer. Curious. Outside lightning illuminated the garden. skeletal trees, the lake a sheet of hammered pewter, the stable block dark. No footprints in the sodden grass. Poirot addressed Graves, who had appeared silently in the doorway. The telephone lines? Down since dusk, sir. Storm took the poles. Isolation complete. Poirot surveyed the suspects. 5 pale faces ringed by flickering gaslight. Somewhere among them a hand still warm from the key. Somewhere the missing papers. He smiled, small and terrible. Very well, we are all prisoners of the storm and of the truth. Let the little gray cells begin their work. The clock in the hall struck 4. In the study, Sir Reginald Hargrove kept his final secret, and the sealed envelope, now empty, lay like a mouth that had already spoken. Chapter 3, The Little Gray Cells, Awaken Dawn, arrived at 6:43 a.m., a sickly pearl behind racing clouds. The study door stood open. The body remained rigid now, a grotesque paperweight on its own correspondence. Hercule Poirot had not slept. He had spent the small hours alone with the corpse, the safe, and the silence, arranging facts the way a chef arranges herbs, pinches of truth, dashes of doubt. At 7 sharp, he summoned the household to the library. The fire was freshly laid. Flames hissed against wet logs. 5 suspects filed in, wrapped in dressing gowns and suspicion. Graves served coffee from a silver pot that trembled only slightly. Poirot stood before the hearth, small, immaculate, hands clasped behind his back. Mesdames et messieurs, we begin with order. First, the crime is impossible only if we accept the obvious. Second, someone in this room knows precisely how it was done. Third, he smiled without warmth. Third, Hercule Poirot will know before luncheon. He produced a sheet of heavy cream paper, Sir Reginald's personal stationery, and a stub of pencil. Alibis. From midnight until Mrs. Finch's scream at 5:51. Write neatly. Sign. No omissions. Pens scratched. Poirot watched the hands. Poirot collected the sheets, folded them once and slipped them into his waistcoat. Now, we reconstruct. He led them to the study. The body had been covered with a dust sheet. The blood beneath had soaked through in a dark map of continents. Poirot knelt, lifted the sheet and pointed. Observe the angle of entry, downward from behind the chair. The killer stood here. He positioned himself behind the desk, approximately 5 feet 8 inches tall. Not Captain Langford, then, who limps and measures 6'1". Not Dr. Thorne, whose girth would have crowded the desk. Possibly Lady Evelyn, if she stood on tiptoe. Possibly Mademoiselle Clara. Possibly Mrs. Finch, who is exactly 5 feet 8. Victor flushed. You're eliminating me because of height? I eliminate no one yet, Poirot replied. I merely measure. He moved to the safe. The door hung ajar. The combination dial was unscratched. Opened by leverage, not knowledge. A jemmy, perhaps. Captain, your revolver, may I? Victor handed it over. Poirot weighed the Webley, then laid it beside the safe. The barrel aligned perfectly with the pry marks. Curious, a gun used as a crowbar, yet no fingerprints on the grip, wiped clean. Dr. Thorne cleared his throat. Reginald kept laudanum in the safe. I prescribed it for his nerves. If the killer took the bottle, then the motive may be silence as well as theft, Poirot finished. He turned to the envelope. The wax seal was cracked in a perfect circle as though pressed by a coin. He produced a magnifying lens. Behold, tiny ridges, a signet ring. Lady Evelyn, your left hand, please. She extended it. Her wedding band was plain gold. But on her right hand gleamed a large onyx intaglio raven clutching a scroll, the blackthorn crest. Borrowed from your husband's desk, perhaps? Poirot asked softly. Evelyn's chin lifted. I never touch his papers. Poirot let it pass, for now. He moved to the window. The bolts were old, rusted, but intact. Outside, the gravel path was a quagmire, no prints. Inside, the rug bore a single damp patch near the fireplace, too small for a footprint, too large for condensation. Mrs. Finch spoke for the first time. The kitchen window was unlatched. I told you, someone came in from the storm. Poirot nodded. Yet the study window is 20 feet above ground, no ivy, no drainpipe. An acrobat might climb, but not in this deluge. No. Entrance was from within the house. He opened the desk drawer. Inside, a half-finished letter in Sir Reginald's hand. My dear Victor, the envelope will show you for the liar you are. Your death at Ypres was convenient, was it not? I have proof. The sentence ended in a blot. Victor read over Poirot's shoulder, face blanching. That portrait in the library, my brother. I am the younger son. Reginald always hated that I survived. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Survived or arranged to survive? A question for later. Clara stepped forward, voice trembling. Monsieur, there is something else. Last night, after Sir Reginald locked himself in, I went to the study door to return a book. I heard voices, 2 men arguing. One was Sir Reginald, the other... She glanced at Victor. Sounded like the captain. Victor's laugh was sharp. I was in my room reading. Ask Graves, he brought me brandy at 1. Graves, summoned, confirmed. Captain Langford requested a hot toddy at 12:47. I delivered it myself. He was in shirt sleeves, no limp. Poirot's mustache twitched. Yet the limp appears only when observed. Interesting. Dr. Thorne wiped his brow. This is madness. Reginald was alive at midnight. Everyone heard the clock. The study was locked. No one entered. Poirot raised a finger. No one we saw. But consider, the key was warm at 5:51. Someone held it after death. Someone who could move unseen through the house. He produced the black pearl from his pocket. Lady Evelyn, this was found beneath the desk. Explain. She touched her necklace, still missing 1 bead. It must have fallen earlier. I was in the study yesterday afternoon. Reginald showed me the envelope. A moment of weakness. Poirot nodded, slowly. A moment, or a reconnaissance. He turned to the group. Now we search. Every room, every pocket, every conscience. Captain Langford, you will accompany me to the stables. There was a light there last night. Dr. Thorne, the medicine cabinet. Ladies, your jewelry boxes. Mrs. Finch, the kitchen and cellars. Graves, the attics. We meet back here in 1 hour. As they dispersed, Poirot lingered, kneeling once more by the body. He lifted Sir Reginald's right hand. Beneath the cuff, a faint bruise, circular like a thumbprint. And on the desk blotter, a single word scrawled in dying ink. Poirot closed the dead man's eyes. Oui, mon ami. But whose treason sealed your envelope? Outside, the storm began to ease, clouds parting like theater curtains. Sunlight, weak, accusing, slanted through the window and fell across the empty safe. Somewhere in the manor, a door closed softly. Somewhere, a secret breathed its last. Chapter 4. Veils of Deception. Narrator, warm, deliberate British. Welcome back to Mystery Manor Tales. I'm Elias Thorne, and the house has begun to speak, though every word is a lie. Chapter 4 is 1,000 words of smoke and mirrors. The search is on, the clues are planted, and someone is already rewriting the night. Tell me in the comments, what would you hide in a house that watches you back? Now, follow the footprints that aren't there. Soft creak of floorboards. Fade to black. Chapter 4. Veils of Deception. Poirot dispatched his reluctant troops like a general who trusts no one, least of all his own soldiers. He himself took the stables, Malacca cane tapping a measured rhythm across wet cobbles. The stable block smelled of damp straw and old leather. 6 loose boxes, all empty save one, a gray gelding with a white blaze, ears pricked at the intruder. Poirot ran a gloved hand along the stall door. Fresh shavings, disturbed. A single boot print in the sawdust, heel deep, toe light. Someone had stood here, weight forward, listening. In the tack room he found what he sought. A coil of thin picture wire cut cleanly with side cutters. Length 18 inches, purpose unknown, but Poirot pocketed it with a murmur of satisfaction. On the windowsill lay a brass button, military, Sussex Yeomanry, Victor's Regiment. The window itself was unlatched, rain blowing in. Poirot closed it, noting the sill was dry beneath the overhang. Someone had opened it after the storm eased. He returned to the library at 9:05 to find the others already assembled, faces flushed with discovery and denial. Dr. Thorne laid a brown glass bottle on the table. Laudanum, from my own bag. Half empty, Reginald took a dose last night, I saw him. But this much missing? Enough to fell a horse. Victor tossed down a folded sheet of paper. Found in the wastebasket of my room, not my handwriting. Poirot unfolded it. A crude forgery, meet me study 1 a.m. Envelope must burn. Planted, Victor snapped. I was asleep. Lady Evelyn produced her black pearl necklace, now complete. The missing bead was in my jewelry box all along. I miscounted in the shock. Mrs. Finch placed a small tin box on the table, rat poison arsenic, kept in the pantry. Lid fingerprints, mine from restocking, but someone moved it to the top shelf last night. Clara, pale, added a torn scrap of lace. From my handkerchief. Found caught on the study doorknob inside. Poirot arranged the offerings in a neat row like evidence in a court-martial. Excellent. We have a button, a wire, a forged note, a poison, a lace scrap, and a pearl that travels. All convenient. All perhaps too convenient. He turned to Graves, who had entered with a silver tray of fresh coffee. The attics? Nothing, sir, except... Graves hesitated. A trunk in the west gable, locked, labeled Captain V. Langford, Ypres, 1917. Heavy padlock, new. Victor's jaw tightened. My brother's effects. Reginald kept them as a shrine, or a threat. Poirot's eyes gleamed. We shall open it later. Now. Observations. He led them back to the study. The body had been removed to the billiard room. The blood remained, a dark continent on the rug. Poirot knelt, produced a small torch, and shone it across the floorboards. See? Minute scratches, here by the fireplace. Parallel, 2 inches apart. Something dragged, not the body, wrong direction. He moved to the wall opposite the desk. A large oil painting, hunting scene, dogs, dead stag, hung slightly askew. Poirot lifted it down. Behind, a small iron door, flush with the paneling. Locked, keyhole empty. A priest hole, Lady Evelyn breathed. Reginald boasted of it, but the key was lost years ago. Poirot produced the key from the study floor, the one found beside the corpse. It slid home with a soft click. The door opened onto a narrow passage, dusty, cobwebbed, descending into darkness. Victor swore. That leads to the wine cellar. I played in it as a child. Poirot shone his torch. Footprints, small, heeled. Led down 3 steps, then vanished. The dust beyond was undisturbed. Someone entered, Poirot murmured, but did not proceed. A blind alley, or a blind. He closed the door, locked it, pocketed the key. Another impossibility. The passage was unused, yet the key was inside the room. Back in the library, he addressed the group. Let us test the forged note. Captain, you're toddy at 12:47. Graves delivered it, but the note asks a meeting at 1 a.m. Did you leave your room? Once, Victor admitted. To the lavatory, down the hall, 2 minutes. Enough, Poirot said, to drop the note in your own basket or for another to do so. He turned to Clara. Your lace, inside the study. You dusted the dagger yesterday. Did you enter after midnight? Clara shook her head. I retired at 11, but I dreamed of footsteps. I woke at 2, looked out, saw a light under the study door. Lady Evelyn laughed, too brightly. Reginald often worked late. The light means nothing. Poirot produced the picture wire. This can open a Yale lock from outside, if one knows how, a trick of burglars on soldiers. Victor met his gaze. I was signals, not infantry. Dr. Thorne shifted. The laudanum. Reginald took a spoonful at dinner, I warned him. But if someone added more to his whiskey, Mrs. Finch's voice cut like a knife. The whiskey decanter in the study, I filled it yesterday, crystal, stopper intact, no tampering. Poirot's smile was wintry, yet the glass beside the body held whiskey and laudanum. Someone with access. He moved to the fireplace. The scratches on the floor led to the hearth. He pressed a panel. Asmall drawer slid open, empty. But the velvet lining bore the faint imprint of a rectangular object. Envelope-sized, Reginald's hiding place, Lady Evelyn said. He showed me once, for emergencies. Poirot closed the drawer. The envelope was moved after the murder from safe to hearth to where? He produced a final item, a single gray hair, caught on the dagger's hilt. Not Sir Reginald's, coarse, clipped short. Mrs. Finch touched her own iron-gray bun. Not mine. Clara's hand flew to her temple. Mine is chestnut. Victor ran a hand through his close-cropped hair, sandy, not gray. Dr. Thorne's was white but long. Lady Evelyn's raven. Poirot tucked the hair into an envelope. A souvenir. Now, luncheon in 1 hour. We reconvene at the priest hole. Bring the trunk key, Captain, and your conscience. As they filed out, Poirot lingered, staring at the hunting painting. The stag's eyes, glass, lifeless, seemed to follow him. He lifted the frame again. Chapter 5. Tangled Webs. At 11:11 a.m., the sky cracked open again, a second deluge that turned the drive into a river and the bridge over Blackthorn Brook into Matchwood. Graves confirmed it from the attic window. The narrow stone arch had collapsed, taking the telephone line with it. Isolation was now absolute. Poirot gathered the household in the billiard room. Sir Reginald's shrouded body lay on the green baize like a chalked corpse at the morgue. The air smelled of wet wool, carbolic, and fear. Before we opened the trunk, Poirot began. A demonstration. He placed the priest hole key on the table. Observe. He threaded the picture wire through the key's bow, bent a tiny hook, and slid it under the study door. Now relocked for effect. A twist, a tug, and the key clattered out on the far side. He retrieved it with the wire, reversed the process, and the key slid back beneath the door into the room. Victor exhaled. Music hall trick. But the key was on the inside rug when we broke in. Precisely, Poirot said. Therefore, the killer locked the door from the outside, then pulled the key back under, after the murder. A simple matter of string or wire or... He glanced at Clara's lace handkerchief. Fine fabric. Clara's hand flew to her throat. My lace was torn on the inside. Knob. Planted, Poirot agreed. Like the forged note, the gray hair, the arsenic tin. Someone orchestrates discord. He turned to the trunk Graves had wheeled in. Oak, iron-bound, the padlock gleaming new. Victor produced a key from his pocket, hesitated, then snapped the lock. The lid creaked open. Inside, a folded officer's greatcoat, blood-stained at the shoulder, a shattered identity disc. A photograph of a younger Victor, smiling, whole, beside another man in identical uniform. On the back in faded ink, me and Jamie, Ypres, 3 Nov 1917. Beneath lay a leather wallet. Poirot opened it. A single sheet, typewritten to whom it may concern. Captain Victor Langford did not die at Ypres. He deserted 4 Nov 1917, assumed the identity of his dead brother James. Proof enclosed, dental records, letters. Victor's face drained to chalk. Reginald's blackmail, he threatened to expose me unless I signed over my inheritance. Lady Evelyn's laugh was brittle. Another motive. How tedious. Dr. Thorne opened his medical bag, produced a stethoscope, and listened to the corpse's chest. Habit or theater. Rigor fully established. Time of death unchanged. Poirot lifted the greatcoat. The blood was old, flaking, but on the cuff a fresh smear, wet, crimson. He sniffed. Fresh. Applied this morning, Mrs. Finch gasped. The laundry. I found a bloodied shirt in the copper, Captain Langford's monogram. I burned it as evidence. Victor rounded on her. You destroyed evidence? I preserved the house's reputation, she snapped. Your uncle's orders were always to burn anything that might shame the family. Poirot raised a hand. Enough. Now luncheon. They ate in the dining room under the gaze of ancestral portraits. Conversation was a minefield. Clara pushed food around her plate. Victor drank claret as though it were water. Lady Evelyn smoked 3 cigarettes in succession. Dr. Thorne's hand trembled as he carved the cold beef. At 1:47 p.m. the second scream came. Not Mrs. Finch this time, but Clara. They found her in the conservatory, glass roof drumming with rain, pointing at the floor. A trail of wet footprints, small, bare, led from the French doors to a potted palm, then vanished. On the tiles, a single playing card, the Queen of Spades, face slashed with a knife. Poirot knelt. The footprints were fresh, the card still damp. He lifted it with tweezers, on the back, in Sir Reginald's hand. Ask Clara about Paris. Clara burst into tears. He was the father. 3 months. He promised to acknowledge the child if I kept silent about the envelope. It named me, said I was a spy's courier in 1918. A lie! Victor's fist hit the table. Another bloody lie! Lady Evelyn stood, pearls clicking. Reginald collected scandals like postage stamps. But murder? Over a governess's bastard? Poirot's voice cut like a scalpel. Overexposure. The envelope was a bomb. Someone detonated it early. He led them to the study once more. The blood map on the rug had darkened to rust. Poirot produced a lump of wax from his pocket, scarlet, still soft. From the envelope seal, melted, then recooled. Someone opened it before the murder, resealed it with a hot knife, then tore it open after death to create confusion. Dr. Thorne paled. That would require access to the study before midnight, Poirot finished. Who had it? Graves cleared his throat. Sir Reginald dismissed me at 11:30, but Lady Evelyn visited at 11:45, said she needed aspirin for a headache. Evelyn's eyes flashed. I was in the study 2 minutes. He was alive, sealing the envelope. Poirot nodded. And you left by the hall door? Yes. Yet the priest-hole key was in the desk drawer then. You could have taken an impression in wax. This is absurd. Poirot ignored her, turning to the fireplace. He pressed the hidden drawer again, empty, still. But on the mantel, the brass candlestick was askew. He lifted it. Beneath, a tiny glass vial, empty cork stopper beside it. Label faded but legible. Laudanum, 2 drachms. Dr. Thorne stared. That's my spare vial. I keep it in my bag. Poirot uncorked it, a faint sweetness. Almond. Cyanide, he corrected softly. Enough for 1 glass of whiskey. Victor stepped back. Poison and a dagger? Insurance, Poirot said. The poison to dull resistance, the dagger to finish. But the envelope, where is it now? He moved to the window, unbolted it. Outside, the rain had eased to a mist. On the sill, a faint smudge. Mud and something white. He scraped it with a fingernail. Paper fiber. He looked down. 20 feet below, the gravel was undisturbed, except for one spot, directly beneath the window, where the stones were pressed flat. Something heavy had landed softly. Poirot closed the window. The envelope was thrown to an accomplice outside, but the storm would have soaked it. Therefore, he turned to the room. The accomplice was inside the grounds under cover. The stables, perhaps. Victor's hand went to his revolver. "I'll check." "No," Poirot said. "We check together. All of us." They trooped to the stable block. The grey gelding whickered. In the corner stall, a tarpaulin lay heaped. Poirot lifted it. Beneath, the missing envelope, intact, dry, sealed with fresh wax. And beside it, a child's Wellington boot, size 3, caked in mud. Clara fainted. Chapter 6. The Revelation. The envelope, dry, sealed, heavier than paper, rested on the billiard table like a loaded gun. Poirot stood at the head, the household ringed around him in a half-circle of dread. Clara, revived with sal volatile, clutched the child's muddy Wellington as though it might bite. The clock on the mantel read 3:33 p.m. Outside, the sky had settled into a flat, accusing gray. Poirot slit the scarlet wax with a fruit knife. Inside, not documents, but a single object wrapped in oilskin. He unfolded it carefully. A brass cylinder, 4 inches long, threaded at one end military. A message canister. Standard issue, Royal Signals, 1917, engraved on the side. Property of Captain V. Langford, 2 Sussex, Yeo. Victor stared as though it were a live shell. That was lost at Ypres, with my brother. Poirot unscrewed the cap. Inside, rolled tight, a strip of yellowed paper. He drew it out and smoothed it on the green baize. A list, 23 names typed with dates and sums in pounds sterling. At the bottom, in Sir Reginald's copper plate, payment to German intelligence, 1916-18. Source, Raven. Proof dental plate letters, photograph enclosed in canister. To be opened 11 Nov 1925 or upon my death. Poirot looked up. Raven the Blackthorn crest, a family trader. He reached into the canister again and produced a small cloth pouch. Inside, a gold molar crown cracked, a lock of sandy hair. A photograph, 2 officers, arms slung round each other, the younger unmistakably Victor. The elder, his dead brother James, on the back in pencil. "If I fall, tell mother I tried." Victor's voice was a whisper. Reginald forged the desertion story. He needed a scapegoat to cover his own sales. I survived by becoming James. He kept the proof to control me. Lady Evelyn's pearls clicked like dice. And the child? Clara's knuckles were white on the boot. Timothy, Sir Reginald's ward. 7 years old. Sent to school last week, but these boots are his. He must have returned. Mrs. Finch shook her head. Master Timothy is in Dorset. I packed his trunk myself. Poirot's eyes never left the canister. Then we have a ghost with muddy feet. He led them down the servants' stair to the wine cellar, the terminus of the priest-hole passage. The iron door stood ajar. Cobwebs hung in shreds. The air was colder here, damp stone and fermentation. Poirot's torch cut a white cone through the gloom. The footprints, small, bare, reappeared on the flagstones, leading to a row of dusty bins. One bin was pulled forward 6 inches, behind it a wooden crate, lid nailed shut. Fresh nail holes driven from the inside. Victor's revolver rose. "Stand back!" He levered the lid with the jemmy. The nails screeched. Inside, not a child but a coil of rope, a dark lantern, and wrapped in oilskin the real envelope. Thicker, sealed with black wax. Poirot slit it. Pages this time. Letters in German, bank transfers, a map of the Ypres salient with red crosses marking battery positions. At the bottom, a photograph. Sir Reginald, younger, shaking hands with a German officer in civilian mufti. Date stamped 14 October 1917. Dr. Thorne exhaled. Reginald was Raven. He sold the guns that killed his own men. Poirot turned the photograph over, on the back in fresh ink. For Poirot, the child knows. They froze. From the far end of the cellar came a soft scrape, bare feet on stone. The torch swung. A small figure stood between the bins, a boy, 7, pajamas soaked, hair plastered to his skull. Timothy Hargrove. In his hand, the missing dagger, clean now, but the blade trembled. Clara ran forward. "Timothy!" The boy's eyes were huge. He made me hide, said if I came out the raven would peck my eyes. Poirot knelt, voice gentle. Who, mon petit? Uncle Reginald, last night. He put me in the crate with the rope and the lantern, said it was a game. Then he locked the study and I heard... His voice cracked. The bad sound. Victor's revolver lowered. The footsteps in the conservatory. The card. The boot in the stable. All you? Timothy nodded. He told me to leave clues, said it would keep me safe. Lady Evelyn's face was stone. And the murder? The boy looked at the dagger. I only watched through the priest hole. I saw, he pointed, high on the wall, a small ventilation grate, level with the study floor above, a perfect spy hole. Poirot's torch illuminated it, fresh scratches around the screws, a child's vantage. Timothy's voice dropped to a whisper. I saw Aunt Evelyn. She came through the passage. Uncle was asleep at the desk. She had the dagger from the wall. He mimed a downward stab, tears spilling. Then she opened the safe with the wire and took the canister. She put the other envelope in its place, then she pulled the key under the door and locked it from outside. She told me to stay hidden or the raven would get me. Silence, thick as dust. Lady Evelyn laughed, high, brittle, final. A child's fancy. He's been reading penny dreadfuls. Poirot stood. Non, madame. A child's memory. The priest hole key fits the cellar door also. Graves confirmed. You knew the passage. You drugged the whiskey with laudanum from Dr. Thorne's vial, stolen yesterday. You staged the locked room with the wire trick. You planted the forged note, the lace, the hair, Mrs. Finch's clipped while she slept. You used Timothy as a decoy, bare feet to confuse Prince, the Queen of Spades to point at Clara. You threw the real canister from the study window to the stable. Knowing the storm would mask the sound, you even staged the ghost with the dark lantern through the grate. He turned to Victor. Your inheritance was safe. Reginald's will left everything to Timothy with you as trustee. But exposure would ruin the name. You needed the proof gone. Evelyn's hand went to her pearls, then stopped. One bead was missing again. Poirot produced it from his pocket, the one found under the desk. Yours, dropped in haste. Dr. Thorne stepped forward, voice shaking. I supplied the laudanum. Am I complicit? Only in trust, Poirot said. Madame acted alone. Lady Evelyn's smile was sudden, dazzling, terrible. Alone? Reginald betrayed king and country for profit. He deserved the dagger, and I... She reached into her sleeve, drew a small derringer. Deserve my freedom. Victor's Webley roared first. The derringer spun away. Evelyn crumpled, blood blooming on black silk. Not fatal, shoulder. Graves caught her as she fell. Wire the village when the bridge is passable, Poirot instructed. Murder, attempted suicide, treason. Scotland Yard will feast. Timothy dropped the dagger and ran to Clara. She held him as he sobbed. Poirot looked at the canister, the photograph, the list. War makes monsters of us all. Chapter 7. Justice served. The sun, pale, astonished, hung over Blackthorn Manor like a witness who had overslept. Mud still clung to the gravel, but the flood had receded, leaving the broken bridge a skeleton of stone and timber. A temporary pontoon, courtesy of the Royal Engineers, now spanned the brook. Across it came 3 black Wolsleys, tires hissing, pennants snapping. Inspector Japp stepped out first, mustache bristling, mackintosh dripping, eyes bright with the scent of a solved case he hadn't solved. Poirot greeted him on the porte cochere, immaculate in dove gray, cane gleaming. Mon cher Japp, you are late, but the tableau is intact. Japp surveyed the household lined up on the steps like misbehaving schoolchildren. Lady Evelyn, left arm in a sling, pearls confiscated. Captain Victor Langford, revolver surrendered, face carved from granite. Clara Beaumont cradling Timothy, the boy's eyes wide but dry now. Dr. Thorne clutching his medical bag as though it might fly away. Mrs. Finch, ramrod straight, lips bloodless. Jap whistled. Blimey, Poirot. Treason, murder, and a locked room, you've been busy. Order and method, mon ami, always. They began in the study. The blood had been photographed, measured, chalked. Jap knelt by the rug. Wire trick, clever. But the child in the cellar? That's new. Timothy saw everything, Poirot said. His testimony plus the canister, the forged envelope, the derringer, open and shut. Jap produced cuffs. Lady Evelyn Hargrove, I arrest you for the murder of Sir Reginald Hargrove and for conspiracy to conceal treason. Evelyn's laugh was soft, almost amused. Read the will first, Inspector. Reginald was meticulous. The solicitor, Mr. Fortescue of Lincoln's Inn, had arrived with the police, tall, thin, smelling of vellum and pipe tobacco. He laid the document on the desk where Sir Reginald had died. Dated 1st November 1925, witnessed by Graves and Mrs. Finch. To my wife, Evelyn, 5,000 and the London house, provided she remarry within a year. To my nephew, Victor Langford, Blackthorn Manor and the residue upon condition he publicly acknowledge his true identity and donate 10,000 to the Royal British Legion. To my ward, Timothy Beaumont. Fortescue paused, glanced at Clara. 50,000 in trust, administered by Mademoiselle Clara Beaumont, natural mother, until the boy reaches 25. The treason documents to be delivered unopened to the War Office. Victor exhaled, a sound between laugh and sob. He knew I'd survive him, and he forgave me. Or punished you, Evelyn said. Living with the truth is its own prison. Jap snapped the cuffs. Save it for the Old Bailey, your ladyship. They moved to the billiard room. Dr. Thorne had laid out the post-mortem findings on the green baize, single stab wound, laudanum in stomach, cyanide trace in whiskey glass. Death by dagger, he concluded. The poison was precautionary. Jap turned to Clara. And the boy? Hidden by Sir Reginald himself, Poirot explained. He suspected Evelyn. The game in the cellar was protection. He instructed Timothy to leave clues if anything happened. The Queen of Spades, the boot, the footprints. A child's treasure hunt to unmask a killer. Timothy, sitting on the billiard table's edge, swung his legs. Uncle said the raven always comes home to roost. I just didn't know Aunt Evelyn was the raven. Mrs. Finch produced a small tin box from her apron. The arsenic tin. Empty. I found the missing laudanum vial in Lady Evelyn's jewel case, hidden behind a false bottom. Evelyn shrugged with her good shoulder. Details. The search of her room yielded more. The missing gray hair, snipped from a mourning wig in the attic. The forged note in Victor's wastebasket. Her stationery, monogram filed off. The dark lantern, still warm from use. Jap bundled her into the second Wolseley. As the door slammed, she looked back once, at the manor, at Timothy, at Poirot. Tell them I did it for love, she said, of country, of child, of self. Order doesn't matter. The car crunched away. Victor remained on the steps, staring at the receding dust. I'll change the name back, he said quietly. Langford, and the 10,000, every penny. Clara took Timothy's hand. We'll plant a tree for Sir Reginald, an oak, something that outlives secrets. Dr. Thorne closed his bag. I'll testify about the laudanum and resign from the practice. Some debts can't be paid in guineas. Mrs. Finch allowed herself the ghost of a smile. Dinner at 8, then. The dining room will feel larger. Poirot watched the Wolseleys disappear around the bend. Jap had left a constable to guard the evidence. The rest would follow by train to London. Trial in the new year. Headline, Pyrrhus murders. Traitor husband in locked room. He turned to the household. Justice is served, but it is never clean. Sir Reginald betrayed his country for gold. Lady Evelyn betrayed her husband for legacy. Both paid. The child, he ruffled Timothy's hair, inherits the future. Victor offered his hand. Thank you, monsieur, for the truth. Poirot took it. Truth is a scalpel, Captain. It cuts both ways. Inside, Graves was already laying fires in every grate. The manor smelled of wood smoke and wet stone, no longer of blood. Poirot collected his valise from the Peacock suite. On the bed lay a single black pearl threaded on a fresh silk cord, a gift or a warning. He slipped it into his pocket. At the front door, the Daimler waited. Wilkins held the door. London, sir? Whitehaven Mansions, and a tisane, Wilkins. Something calming. As the car purred down the drive, Poirot looked back once. The manor stood against the sky, windows catching the frail sun like eyes that had finally closed. Timothy waved from the steps, Clara's arm around his shoulders. Victor raised a hand in salute. Poirot touched the pearl in his pocket. War makes monsters, he murmured, but children make tomorrows. The Daimler turned onto the main road. Behind it, Blackthorn Manor settled into silence, no longer cursed, merely old. Ahead, London waited with its fog and its telephones and its endless appetite for secrets. Justice had been served. Chapter 8. The false dawn. The Daimler idled at the foot of the steps, Wilkins dozing behind the wheel. But Poirot stood in the entrance hall, Kane tapping a slow tattoo on the parquet. Something itched at the edge of his little gray cells, a discord, a false note in the symphony of resolution. He had sent the others to bed with assurances. Sleep, mes amis, the case is closed. Yet sleep, like justice, was rarely so obedient. The house breathed around him, settling beams, cooling hearths, the faint drip of a tap somewhere in the servants' wing. He moved on silent feet to the library. The fire was ash. The portrait of the dead Lieutenant Victor Langford gazed down with painted sorrow. Poirot lifted the brass plate again. The scratched initials, VL 1925, had been polished away. Someone had been here since dusk. He climbed the main staircase, past the study, door sealed with red tape, constable snoring in a chair outside. On the landing, a sliver of light beneath Clara's door. Poirot knocked once, soft. Clara opened immediately, fully dressed, Timothy asleep behind her on the chaise. Monsieur, her whisper trembled. I cannot sleep. The boy, he woke screaming an hour ago. Said he saw the raven at the window. Poirot entered. The nursery window overlooked the stable yard. He unlatched it. Cold air, wet earth, and something else. Petrol. Below, fresh tire tracks cut across the gravel leading from the stable block to the tradesman's gate. The gate stood open. Someone left after the police, Poirot murmured. Or arrived. He descended the back stairs, Clara following. The kitchen was dark, but the pantry door ajar. Inside, the icebox open, a ham half-carved, a bottle of milk overturned. On the flagstones, a single muddy footprint, adult, bare, size 9. Clara gasped. Timothy's boots are size 3. That print in the conservatory was a child's. This is different. Poirot's torch swept the floor. The print led to the cellar door, unlocked. He descended. The wine bins stood as before, but the crate was gone. In its place, a neat pile of oilskin, the dark lantern, and new, a child's drawing in wax crayon. A stick figure with a dagger labeled Aunt E beside it. Another figure, tall, faceless, holding the canister. Scrawled beneath, he lied. Poirot's mustache bristled. Timothy drew this tonight? Clara nodded. He woke, drew it, fell asleep again. Said the tall man told him to. They returned upstairs. Poirot woke Victor, sleeping in the master bedroom, revolver on the nightstand. Captain, you're Webley. How many rounds fired? Victor checked. 1. At Lady Evelyn's Derringer. Poirot led him to the study. The constable stirred, saluted. Poirot examined the red tape, intact. But inside, the desk drawer was open 6 inches. The hidden compartment in the hearth, empty yesterday, now held a single sheet. Typed unsigned, you have the wrong raven. The boy saw what I needed him to see. Check the stables at dawn. Impossible. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Improbable, but not impossible. They roused Dr. Thorne, pajamas, spectacles askew. Mrs. Finch appeared with a lantern, hair in steel curlers like a Roman helmet. Graves followed, impassive, to the stables. The gray gelding was gone. In its stall, the crate from the cellar, lid pried open. Inside, Sir Reginald's dressing gown, blood-soaked at the shoulder, the same stain as the greatcoat in the trunk, and a wax moulage of a face. Reginald's eyes closed, peaceful. A stage prop. Chapter 9. Truth Unveiled. Thursday, 14th November, 1925, 6:03 a.m. Frost silvered the gravel. The sky was the color of a fresh bruise. Poirot had not slept. He stood in the stable yard, breath pluming, cane planted like a flag. Behind him, Victor, revolver reloaded, Clara, coat over nightgown, eyes red, Dr. Thorne with his black bag, Mrs. Finch clutching a lantern though dawn was breaking. Graves' face carved from granite. The tire tracks ended at the tradesman's gate, but new marks overlaid them. Hoofprints deep leading back into the yard. The gray gelding had returned alone, saddle empty, reins trailing. Its flanks were lathered. Frost crusted the bit. On the pommel, tied with binder twine, a single object. The real brass canister, dented, lid sealed with black wax. Victor cut the twine. Poirot unscrewed the cap. Inside, not paper, but a reel of cinematograph film. 35mm Kodak, 1917, and a note in Sir Reginald's hand. Play it in the dark, then burn it. The boy is safe. Clara's sob broke the silence. Timothy? Poirot's eyes never left the reel. Alive, for now. They carried the canister to the billiard room. Curtains drawn, projector borrowed from the village cinema, threaded by Graves with trembling fingers. The constable, still on duty, was sent for coffee and locked outside. The screen flickered, grainy images, silent Ypres, October 1917. A younger Reginald, Captain's Pips, meets a German officer in a ruined barn. Money changes hands. A map is exchanged. Then the camera pans to a boy, 10 years old, terrified, holding a lantern. Timothy's grandfather, the groundskeeper Mrs. Finch, had mourned. The reel ended with a close-up of the brass canister being sealed. Date stamped in corner, 14th in Oct 1917. Victor's voice was hoarse. He filmed his own treason insurance. Or suicide. Poirot ejected the reel. Both. He planned this vanishing act years ago. The dummy, the blood, the child's clues. All rehearsal. Dr. Thorne stared at the screen. But Lady Evelyn did stab the dummy. She confessed. Confessed to a murder that never happened, Poirot corrected. Reginald needed a scapegoat to vanish cleanly. Evelyn's jealousy, her midnight visit, perfect. He drugged the dummy's whiskey, waited in the priest hole, watched her panic and flee, then locked the door with the wire. He took Timothy, the gelding, the canister, and drove into the storm. Clara clutched the empty saddle. Where are they? Poirot pointed to the hoofprints. The horse returned from the old railway cutting, 2 miles north, disused since 18, a perfect hide. They followed the trail on foot, Victor leading, revolver drawn. The cutting was a scar in the downs, rusted rails, sleepers rotting, a signal box sagging like a drunk. Inside the box, signs of recent occupation, a Primus stove, tinned beans, a child's blanket. On the table, a fresh note. Too late. Train at 7:15, Dover-Calais. Do not follow, the boy will write. The local milk train still stops at the halt. We can make it. They ran. The frost cracked beneath their boots. Breath steamed like signals. The halt was a platform of weeds and broken lamps. In the distance, a plume of smoke. The train, 2 carriages, ancient engine, halted with a shriek of brakes. The guard stepped down, bewildered. Express to Dover. No passengers booked. Poirot boarded. The first carriage, empty. The second, Sir Reginald, alive, overcoat buttoned to the throat, Timothy asleep against his shoulder, a suitcase at their feet. On the seat opposite, the original envelope, unopened, seal intact. Reginald's smile was weary. "You always were punctual, Poirot." Victor's revolver rose. "Step away from the boy." Reginald gently lifted Timothy to the seat. "He's drugged. Laudanum and milk. He'll wake in Calais with no memory of this." Clara rushed forward. "You monster!" "Practical," Reginald corrected. "The film is my death warrant. The War Office would hang me. Evelyn would have exposed me for spite. This way the name dies with a murderer, the estate passes clean. The boy inherits under a new flag." Poirot's voice was soft. "And the dummy?" "Built in 17, my understudy." Chapter 10. Echoes in the Mist, 1,000 words precisely. Spring 1926, Blackthorn Manor, Sussex. The priest hole was bricked up by Easter. Victor Langford, now openly Captain James Langford, the brother who never died, stood in the study while the masons worked, revolver holstered but never far from his hand. The safe remained locked, the blank envelope inside, a white mausoleum for a truth that had flown south on a milk train. He donated the promised 10,000 to the Royal British Legion the day the bricks were pointed. A plaque in the village hall reads, "In memory of those who came home in the Idai, dark." Clara Beaumont married Dr. Elias Thorne in the little Norman church on Whit Sunday. Timothy, aged 8, carried the rings on a black velvet cushion. He asked no questions about the man who had vanished. The laudanum had done its work. In his memory, Uncle Reginald was a bedtime story with a happy ending on a boat to France. Clara planted a rose bush over the spot where the crate had hidden. Peace, creamy white, thornless. It flowered the first week of June. Mrs. Finch retired to a cottage on the estate with a pension and a cat named Graves. She kept the arsenic tin on her mantel as a paperweight, empty, label peeled, a reminder that poison comes in many bottles. Every Armistice Day she walks to the War Memorial and lays 11 white chrysanthemums, one for each November since 1918. Lady Evelyn Hargrove stood trial at the Old Bailey in March. The dummy, the wax moulage, the pig's blood, none of it surfaced. Poirot testified with courteous precision. The locked room, the wire trick, the laudanum, the derringer. The forged canister, Reginald's list of imaginary traitors, was entered as Exhibit A. The jury took 43 minutes. Guilty. Death. On the eve of execution, she asked for a black pearl necklace. The wardress refused. She was hanged at Holloway on 22nd April wearing only prison gray. Poirot received a postcard in May, postmarked Calais. No message, only a child's drawing in wax crayon. A stickman with a mustache, a raven on his shoulder, both smiling. On the back in pencil, "Thank you for the blank pages." He burned it in his gas ring at Whitehaven Mansions and drank tisane with extra sugar. Summer 1927. The oak victor planted the oak on the exact spot where the stable tire tracks had ended, a sapling from Windsor Great Park, root-balled in burlap. Timothy helped dig the hole, knees muddy, tongue between teeth. Clara read the dedication aloud, "For those who vanished and those who remained. May roots outrun secrets." Dr. Thorne, now Thorne Langford, took photographs with a Kodak Brownie. The image hangs in the hall. Victor in shirt sleeves, Clara in cotton print. Timothy grinning gap-toothed, the sapling no taller than the boy's waist. Behind them, the manor windows catch the sun like eyes that have learned to blink. Autumn 1930, the letter that never arrived. Timothy, now 12, found a brass button in the rose bed. Sussex Yeomanry, verdigris eating the crest. He brought it to Victor, who paled, then laughed too loudly. "Grandfathers," he said, "from the war." Timothy polished it on his sleeve and sewed it onto his school blazer. He never asked why it made the adults fall silent. Winter 1935. The safe victor died of a burst appendix on Boxing Day, aged 44. The will was simple. Everything to Timothy and trust until 25. Clara, executor, opened the safe for the first time since 1925. The blank envelope lay inside, swollen with damp. She carried it to the oak, now 15 feet high, branches knitting the sky, and buried it at the roots without opening it. Dr. Thorne poured a tot of Reginald's 1904 Armagnac onto the soil. "Rest, you old bastard," he muttered. The oak drank it in. Spring 1940, war again. Timothy, 18, enlisted the day Chamberlain spoke. He wrote to Clara from Dover Barracks, "If I don't come back, plant another oak." He flew Spitfires over the channel, came home with a DFC and a limp that echoed Victor's. On VE Day, he stood beneath the oak, now 30 feet, trunk thick as a man's thigh, and carved a tiny raven into the bark with his service knife. The scar healed white. 1955, the child's child. Timothy married a waif nurse from Leeds. Their daughter, Evelyn, named for the aunt she never knew, was born the year Suez flared. She grew up chasing peacocks across the lawn, unaware that the rose bed hid a thornless secret, or that the oak's roots cradled blank pages and a lie. On her christening, Clara gave her the black pearl on a silver chain. "It's for remembering," she said, "without remembering why." Autumn 1975, the fire. The manor burned on Guy Fawkes night, electrical fault in the West Wing. Fire crews saved the East Wing and the oak. Timothy, 57, watched from the lawn as flames licked the priest-hole bricks, now part of a bedroom wall. The safe survived, warped but intact. He pried it open with a crowbar. Inside, the envelope, now a solid brick of pulp and mold. He carried it to the oak and buried it deeper beneath the raven scar. No one saw. Winter 1995. The letter that did a yellowed envelope arrived at the rebuilt manor, addressed to the current resident in spidery copperplate. Timothy, gray widowed grandfather now, opened it by the fire. Calais, 1946. "My dear boy, if you read this, I am dust and you are old enough. The film burned, the lie lived, the oak grows. Tell them the raven was only a story. Some secrets keep the world turning. Are no return address." Timothy burned it in the same grate where Poirot had once destroyed a postcard. He poured a whiskey, Reginald's last bottle, 1904, and drank to ghosts. Spring 2025. The oak still stands. Timothy's granddaughter, another Evelyn, 25, plants a time capsule at the oak's roots for the centenary. Inside, a USB drive of family photos, a Spitfire badge, a single black pearl. She does not know the earth already holds an older capsule, or that the tree's rings record 2 wars, one hanging, and a vanishing that never quite vanished. The manor is a boutique hotel now. Murder mystery weekends, cream teas, no children under 12. Guests swear the West Wing is cold even in August. The oak shades the croquet lawn, its raven scar faded to a pale comma. No one remembers why the roses are thornless. Poirot's black pearl hangs in a display case in the hall, labeled "Donated by the family," provenance unknown, beneath in tiny print. The past is never dead. It is not even past. W. Faulkner. At dusk, if you stand very still, you can hear it. A child laughing, a train whistle far south, the soft click of a safe that will never open again. The raven is only a story, but stories like oaks have deep roots.